Learn how to build a better sign and print shop from a few crusty sign guys who've made more mistakes than they care to admit. Conversations and advice on pricing, sales, marketing, workflow, growth, and more. You're listening to the Better Sign Shop Podcast with your hosts, Peter Kourounis, Michael Riley, and Bryant Gillespie.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Better Sign Shop Podcast. Is it still the podcast? I think it is. All right.
Is it?
I am your host, Bryant Gillespie. I've got the sign burrito, Michael Riley, with me.
I was hoping that we'd forgotten about that by now, but
we haven't forgot the nicknames.
no guacamole.
It's the elephant in the room, man. Obviously, it's been a minute since we've laid down any tracks in the studio. How the hell are you, Michael?
I'm hanging in there. I've survived 2024 fairly well. Okay. I don't remember. What was it? I guess it was 2023 the last time I had this microphone shoved in my face here. So it's been an interesting year for me. I've kind of stepped away from the podcast and my business a little bit, slowed things down, trying to regroup some. But it's been a year for sure. How about you?
It's been a year. I think that's the theme.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff, work-wise, family-wise. Obviously, like we did, like I don't know if it was out of necessity or each one of us just kind of got busy. Like we stepped away from the podcast for a bit. And kudos to the listeners out there. Like my inbox is full of people that are like, "Hey, is this done? Or like you guys going to record some more episodes? Or like what are you doing?"
I guess that's a good thing that people are like, you actually want more of our incessant rambling. Like I'll take it as a compliment. Thank you guys. It's good to be
I'll
back.
call it a win.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to discuss AI. Internally, I've titled this the ominous AI episode, but I think we've got some interesting remarks on it. But like, tell me, like, are you still doing sign design? Like, what do you aside from still working on your house? Like, what are you doing day to day?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely still doing my sign design business. I've just scaled it back quite a bit. I've been dealing with my parents live in Ohio and I live in Oregon, so my father has been battling cancer for the last 10 years, and in the last year he's really taken a dive, and I've been traveling back and forth quite a bit, and just my brain has been occupied with that, and have just had to slow the business down for my own, mental health and step away from the podcast here a little bit, been spread too thin. I think everybody can probably relate to that at some point in time or another. Fortunately, here in the last month or so, we've finally been able to convince my parents that it's time for them to sell their house and move out here. So you mentioned the house project that we've been, remodeling our money pit here for the last 4 years. Is the main project is kind of sort of winding down a little bit, and we're about to break ground on about a 500 square foot addition to our house and remodel our garage and, adding some living space for my parents to move here. So, I'm entering that phase of adulthood where now I'm going to be the parent, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. It's terrifying, dude. Like, I'm really frightened right now. It's an interesting place to be, and definitely this year is, like I said, it's with everything going on. I've just kind of let the business sort of, I don't want to say sit on the back burner, but just as it hasn't had my full attention.
Well, the last time we talked, you had like more work than what you needed anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I was drowning in work, and it was it was right around the time when my father's health started to get bad again, and it just became so overwhelming. I just kind of had to say, I need to scale this back by like 50% here a little bit, or I'm going to, end up in a ball in the corner in the fetal position, shaking in a padded room for the rest of my life. So, we're always harping on, mental health and taking care of yourself first. And that's something that, we still need to do that episode, by the way.
Yeah, I'm down, man.
Yeah. But this year's kind of been my mental health year, and my year to sort of, take a step back, breathe, focus on family and what's more important than designing channel letters. But aside from that, yeah. I mean, I'm still,
Kudos.
I've still got my little core handful of clients that I'm taking care of, and staying pretty busy with them. And it's fun. Honestly, stepping away from it and not being so consumed by the sign industry and design and everything like that, and having a little bit of breathing space from it has definitely helped too. Like I have more room to be creative, and my brain is a little bit clearer, and I don't know what the right word there would be, but it's just when you don't have it coming at you from every which direction, and you're not so overwhelmingly busy that you can actually focus on doing a good job and putting out quality. It's good. So I'm taking this year as a rebuilding year. Yeah, which has been nice. So it's definitely nice to be back on the podcast for sure. It's been so long. I've kind of just wanted to stick my head in the sand and pretend like the sign industry doesn't exist here for a little bit, like we all do. But I'm excited to talk shopping.
It's still maintained. It's a disease, man. Like you get it in the blood, you can't get it out.
No.
Like you can take a break, like maybe you go into remission or something.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the right word for it. It's totally remission. So yeah, for last year I just kind of was in semi-remission, but how about you?
Yeah, I mean, so like Better Sign Shop, like the community's still rocking. We've got how many, like looking at it now, there's like close to 700 sign shop owners. And of course, like we verify everybody is an owner or management before we let them into the group. But, like you, we kind of took a back seat to life, working at a tech startup full time as well. So, the sign industry kind of became a side project, which, without that pressure to like make this the whole thing, I think you gain that perspective. So, we like trying to really define what Better Sign Shop is beyond like a community, or like how to turn this into like a sustainable business that's not just supporting me, but also everybody else who's part of the circle. Was a challenge. We tried a lot of things that didn't necessarily work out. We went very heavy into like this knowledge, like process SOP thing, because like through the consulting work we were doing, that's like, hey, everybody needs these systems, or they want to have all this stuff defined, and like we over-indexed on that, and we also kind of got hit with what we're talking about today is the AI wave, where like half of the stuff that we spent tons of time generating now can be generated in about half an hour by somebody clacking into ChatGPT.
So it was a learning year for you.
A learning year, yeah.
What did you learn about about yourself and about the industry in the last year that you are surprised by? What caught you off guard?
I think that's a great question. You put me on the spot. I wasn't prepared.
Miss my deep philosophical questions.
Best question. To throw in the Trump.
You went there.
I had to go there. I don't know how much I learned about the industry. What you learn about yourself is, I think I've learned more of what I'm great at and what I'm not great at. That's obviously like a thing that changes with age. Where you're just kind of forced to face reality of what, like, hey, here's exactly what you're good at. Here's what you're not. What do you do? Like you gotta lean into what you're good at and just kind of like fade away from what you're not. So for me, that's like solving specific problems. I've always been pretty good at that. Like creating problems to solve, was not good at that. So hopefully we're back on the right track. Obviously, like I've missed chatting with you and Pete, and Pete couldn't make it here today. But yeah, just getting back. I think having fun with it as well. I'm not sure if that's been a theme for you as well, but like.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And for me, the last year, and I mentioned to you the other day, we were having a conversation. In the last year, I've learned, by taking myself out of the the whirlpool, I guess, and standing over here on the side, just kind of watching everything swirl, I've learned that, really what drives my passion in the industry, what I really enjoy, and what I, what talent and skill I actually bring to the table, and what I don't, more importantly, I think what I don't enjoy, what I don't like, what I don't bring to the table, and what I should, like you said, as an adult, in theory, an adult anyway. I don't know. Sometimes I still question that. I mean, I'm a 43-year-old man-child in a lot of ways.
Men are stuck at 17, like humor-wise, or maybe even like 13. 100%.
Oh yeah.
We'll go on record.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you should see, like, my best friend from high school and I were on Instagram all day, every day, just constantly, like, sending each other fart memes back and forth. Like, never grow up, men. Hold on to your youth as long as you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of like trying to dip my toe back into the, like I said, I didn't stop or step away entirely or anything like that. I just kind of turned it. I had it cranked up to 11, and I turned it down to like, turned down to like 4, and now I'm just maybe slowly turning it back up until I get to a point. I'm not, just because it goes up to 11 doesn't mean I have to crank it up all the way to 11, and that's the kind of the lesson I'm trying to learn here. And I've learned that I've always had a nagging suspicion that I really hate business, which so, admittedly sounds really weird to say on a business podcast, but I don't know. I don't know. It's something that I don't enjoy. When I was younger, the hustle I loved. I loved the go get 'em, grind till you drop kind of. That when you're 20 in your 20s and you got energy and you don't have arthritis in your knees, like, it's easy and it's fun. True story.
Indeed.
Yeah, and when you live in Oregon where it rains half the year, believe me, it's fun when you have arthritis.
Is it true what my grandmother says? Like,
100%. Oh yeah, totally.
Like right before it rains.
Yeah. I make the old man groaning noises when I stand up out of a chair a lot more frequently when it's damp and humid out than when it's dry, for sure. It's that's a very real thing, for sure. But yeah, I've learned that I'm a creative person. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not I know the stuff. I understand the stuff. I can do it if you put a gun on my head, but I just don't want to anymore. I don't want to. The business stuff is just, it's like, I don't know. I'm not a competitive person. Something I've known about myself for a long time is I'm not really a competitive person. That's why I'm not a huge sports fan. Like, it's just kind of, cool, whatever. And I think if you don't have that competitive drive, business is just kind of like, it's like trying to watch a baseball game when you're not a baseball fan. It's like, where's the hot dogs? So I've learned that about myself, and trying to now avoid the business world as much as I possibly can, moving forward, and focus on the creative side of things, and hopefully that helps to sidestep some burnout that I was experiencing before, if I'm not so mired in the business side of signs, and I'm just only focusing on the creative side of it, which is what I got into it in the first place for. I'm a maker. I like to make cool shit. That's all I care about. Philosophy Hour with Mike.
And we're back. It wouldn't be a podcast episode without any technical issues. For whatever reason, my mic messed up, and now I'm back, but totally missed some of what you were saying there. But Philosophy Hour with Mike. Is that what it was, or?
Yeah, Philosophy Hour with Mike. Right? Yeah, it just was on my.
Yeah, love it.
Did it record anything I just said?
It did. Yeah. Okay. We're good. Like, it recorded that. It just didn't hear me. So, like, on the video track, you'll see me like Wayne's World going through the drive-thru.
Amazing.
No, I like to bring this back to business. I think that's an important lesson to learn, right? Like, hey, if you're not the manager type and you find yourself as the owner and de facto manager in the sign shop, hey,
what do you do?
Like, maybe you should not double down and necessarily believe that you have to develop those management skills.
Right. We all know. We both know quite a few people in the industry that shouldn't be running the business, and that's not an insult to those people. It's just they need to recognize that and get out of their own way and let people do what they're good at, and that includes yourself too. You should do what you're good at, not what you feel like you have to do. You know, I mean, you could make an argument that if you don't like business, you probably shouldn't be a business owner. But
Hey,
hey,
not to judge. Not here to
right.
judge. Not here
That's
to
true.
judge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's dive into the ominous tone. I guess I called it ominous because like on Netflix now, like once you go like subtitle, you don't go back. Like, I'm not sure if you guys do that at home. Like Ashley, like my wife and I, like anything that we watch on Netflix or whatever, it always has subtitles, even if it's in English. And like after a while, you can't watch anything without the subtitles. I don't know why, but
You know, I
like,
can't do like YouTube videos without subtitles on. Like I have to have the subtitles on YouTube videos or Instagram videos if there's like people talking. I have to have that, but I haven't gotten to that with AI or with Netflix yet. So
well, like my favorite part is like the ominous music comes on and it just like
oh, yeah.
parentheses
Ominous
music. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of Netflix shows actually that I watch that are in foreign languages, and so I have the the English subtitles on, and some of the translations and just like the narration like that, or it's just hilarious. I love it when they do that.
I love it, man.
Yeah, it's comedy gold. Yeah.
All right. So
AI. Yeah, let's talk about what scares us.
Yeah, I think we got to kick this off. You like personal spicy take on AI.
Yes.
You go.
How do I word this? I'm horrifically terrified of it, and also like really excited about it at the same time. It's very like conflicting and confusing. I feel very weird inside. I see it as potentially like one of the greatest tools that has ever been given to humanity on one hand, or been created by humanity on one hand, but it also obviously there's massive potential risks involved in it that I think are very real, that aren't alarmist when you really look at the speed at which it's progressing. So spicy take, I think it's here to stay, and I think if we don't embrace it and learn to love it, it will probably ruin our lives. I don't know. I don't know. Is that even spicy, or is it?
I feel like that is the middle of the road.
Yeah. Like,
take.
I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, it's your take though. I honestly, like, the take that I had is excited but scared as a. So, the same take.
Get your own material, man.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like I'm using AI every day now, and it's like I've made it a point to. I don't know why I feel like I need to keep up with it all, but well, it'd probably be because I'm in the tech industry full time.
Right.
But I'm just trying to keep up with like the changes that are happening like week over week with it is like mind blowing. So like for comparison, spring of 2023. This is like April, May-ish. We ran a survey at Better Sign Shop. We had like 122 responses. I'm looking at it right now. The first question was like, hey, have you tried AI tools like ChatGPT, DALL-E, which is the image generation, or Midjourney? Like 30% had tried them. Only 11% would say I use them often.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, like a year and a half ago? Like fast forward to now, like I see on like all the sign industry forums or groups, like somebody's like, hey, do you have a template for like I'm hiring somebody, and everybody's like, just chat GPT it.
Right.
It's like unfortunately for the product that we were building, we were like most of the way through that, and then chat GPT caught up with about everything. But like the progression now.
I wonder how many other people were in that same boat as you. Sorry, just that popped into my head. I can't imagine how many other people were in the middle of developing something, some product or service or something like that. That just were just like, well, shit. Like, now what do I do? Like,
what do you do with this? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to like lean into it. But like for me, on a spicy level, like I think this thing is going to get outrageous, a lot faster than what we think it is.
Oh, fuck, it already is. Yeah, absolutely. Like a year and a half ago when you did that poll, I don't think anybody would have ever thought that a year and a half later, A, it would have advanced as far as it has, as quickly as it has, or B, it would be as ubiquitous in our lives as it already is. I mean, that's crazy in such a short amount of time. And that's why I'm so afraid of it, is because it's advancing so quickly. I mean, it is, it's one of those things that, like, the Terminator isn't really that far fetched anymore. Like, it could become a really, if not to go down the political rabbit hole, but I mean, it's so good now that you can't tell fact from fiction, a real photo from a fake photo, and that's happened in the span of 6 months ago. You could tell that's AI generated or AI wrote that, and now you can't, right? So
Yeah.
how do we control that?
Do we want to save the doom and gloom for the end?
Pro-
I don't know how to like structure this one other than just to like dive into it. But
I know, right? Like,
hey,
go into the deep end. Man.
Yeah, maybe let's like.
Okay,
Are
I'll
you
table
using
the.
any of the? Yeah. We'll save that for the end. Like, what are you using on a daily basis now? Like, are you using ChatGPT? Like any of these tools?
So in my work, I use ChatGPT occasionally. Being a sign designer, it's not going to generate, for the most part, much that I can use outside of idea generation, and I definitely have used it quite a bit for certain things. Like, I need a really specific, watercolor style painting. Of a good example, I had to do a sandblasted sign, like a fancy sandblasted gold leaf sign for somebody's like fancy, vacation house out in the mountains, and they wanted a painting of a moose in a mountain stream with the mountains behind. And you can't find something that specific. You can't find that on any stock site. And like most cases, the budget isn't there to hire an actual painter or an artist to paint that. And that sucks. And you hate to say that out loud. Like, we can't actually pay an artist to do this. But that's the reality. Is you can't pay an artist to do that in this particular case.
Yeah.
That's
We've all dealt with that on like personal projects. So like,
yeah. Budgets are very real. Like, to pretend like we all don't have budgets, whether we're in business or personal, is stupid. Like, everybody's got a budget, and you got to find a way to work within it. So, ChatGPT created an absolutely stunning, unbelievable painting that I was able to drop right into the sign. Customer loved it. They got a sign that looks phenomenal, that met their needs and then some, that was well within their budget. And, without ChatGPT, we would have had to cut some sort of corner. We would have had to use clip art or some image that wasn't quite right, or we would have had to go without the, that graphic on it altogether. So it created a solution for a customer that gave them a beautiful sign without an unaffordable budget, But the flip side of that is it diminished the value of an actual painter's work when, especially at a commercial level. Like, why would you hire a painter to paint that scene when I can have ChatGPT do it for me in 5 minutes for free, right? That's the existential threat. Going back down the dark rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, no. Maybe we just say like address it head on, right?
I don't know how not to. This is
the crux, right? Because I've shared with you some of the experiments I've done,
mm-hmm.
and like to me, like where it's gone, and I don't know. Maybe I'll share my screen and just like to show like those of you who are actually watching the video on YouTube can actually see some of this stuff. And what's possible right now today, and if it doesn't like somewhat scare you, I would be surprised. But as a creative industry, like especially for somebody like you, and we've had Dan Antonelli, and like there's the sign industry is nothing but creativity, like put into like a commercial setting, right?
Right.
Like that's what it is, more than any other medium, I think, because. If you look at like printing, like commercial printing on paper, like you got a format. Like, hey, I've got to print a design. It's got to go on this piece of paper. Okay, yes, I've got X, Y, and Z. I can do whatever I want within the box. Or like a T-shirt, you're putting a graphic on a T-shirt or a piece of clothing or a bag or whatever. The sign industry, and I guess what always drew me to it initially was like you got unlimited options.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody. If the budget's $150, you're probably stuck with like a banner or something. But, given a problem of, hey, I need to let people know that this business exists, there's an infinite number of solutions that you could create.
Right. That's the same thing I love about it too. Is it's using your creative talents to solve a real world problem, and that's like the most rewarding thing you can do as a creative person, right? Yeah, totally.
But,
But
like all these AI LLMs, or even if we take like the image generation models, like it's all trained on stuff that has been put out into the world by folks like you or other designers and photographers and everything, and it's like sucked all this stuff up, and now it spits out, you know, I won't say variations of that, but like it filled to some extent, like it sucked up that creative juice and is now like using that, and I don't think anybody got paid for it. So like,
yeah, yeah, and I mean if you follow, I mean just the Adobe scandal here of late, where Adobe announced that they're using anything that people use in their generative AI tools. On the back end, train their generative AI. I mean, they're basically using what you create in their products to train their own AI. And that's so many ethical gray areas there with it too. But so yeah, I mean, I think that it's a phenomenal tool in the right hands if you look at it the right way. But I mean, it definitely has the potential to, I don't know if it has the potential to totally destroy creativity, but it definitely has the potential to do serious value or to serious damage to the value of creativity, I think.
Or like to the value of what you do, like design, right? Like
to some degree or another. I mean, like you said, understanding the way it functions, the way it works and creates those images, which it's not creating it out of thin air from scratch. Like I think the name implies kind of where like, this is a computer that's just painting this for you. It's not. It's in a way, it's kind of building a composite of millions and millions of images, not creating it from scratch, if you want to look at it that way. So it's. I don't think it's ever going to be able to fully replace designers because it will never have the human eye, right? Like it can't look at something subjectively like a designer can. And I think that's really the key thing there that everybody needs to be aware of and keep in the front of their mind is it isn't subjective. It's totally objective. It's going to do what you tell it to do and what it's trained on and what source imagery it finds. But it can't look at that and step back and say, that looks awesome or that looks like shit, right? Like it doesn't, that's what it'll never be able to do. And that's where the human factor theoretically has to remain is the taste. Yeah, I guess if you want to put it that way. Right. So I think it'll be, I won't say a cold day in hell because I'll probably have to eat those words, but I think it'll be, I think it'll be a long, I don't think it'll ever fully replace designers or artists, at least at a elite level. I don't know, it sounds really conceited to say at a high professional level, right? Now, it's already way better at design than a entry level amateur designer, and it's way better at design, frankly, than a lot of designs that sign shops and print shops and are putting out there on the street. So I think it has the potential to actually improve the visual landscape if it's used right. But I don't think it's ever going to replace a seasoned professional, true creative designer, right? Like I feel like the Dan Antonellis and of the world are never going to feel really threatened by it. But those are the same people that aren't threatened by a competitor opening up shop next door either, because they know the value they bring is their taste, not the tools that they use. It's it's their subjective taste that they bring to the table. For people that have to write for a living and create code and things like that, where subjectivity is, I guess writing isn't really the case, but the more you remove subjectivity from the end product, I feel like the riskier your job probably is. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, like I'm, like from a developer perspective, I still struggle with calling myself a developer sometimes because it's not my background, and I only picked up like JavaScript development to build the stuff I wanted to build because I couldn't do it with the tools that were out there.
I want to clarify for everybody listening right now that Bryant's being extraordinarily humble, and this dude is like, he's like developer Rain Man,
No, 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 no.
No, it's important. I really think that it's important that people understand that about you. That like you're phenomenal. And I'm not saying that you're like a world class programmer. You've got a long way to go for that, but you're really excellent at what you do, right? So it's important that you're not making this statement from like, hey, I'm an amateur, you know.
Yeah, I'm not an amateur. We'll say
Right.
that 100%, right? And like the thing, like I think for us as like an industry is like embracing that intersection. You know, like
Right.
for me personally, like being able to blend like the different experiences I've had together and like being able to create something. So like graphic design, you know, sign and print design is not web design, but like good design principles
Good design is good
are
design.
like it's cross discipline, right?
Right.
So like if I'm developing something or I'm coding something, you know, I'm just going to infuse that into that work. But I will tell you that like I've used like some of the AI tools. Like one of the ones that I'm using a lot is like Claude is the name of it. I canceled my Chat GPT subscription. I'm using Claude. I pay I think it's like $29 a month for it. Use it for all sorts of things, but like if it's especially great for like the coding perspective because you've got somebody that has this large repository of knowledge that you can get instant feedback from,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Um, there's a lot of great developers out there, but having one that's pretty good with you at all times is like a huge level up where you could just, you know, yeah, like these things still hallucinate, they still like create shit out of thin air. But the nice thing about code is like you can just plop it in there, see if it runs. Like you can look at it and see like what's going on. But as a developer, like for me, I'm fully aware that I am like training a replacement when I use these tools, and that you know,
Right.
because I'm never gonna go deep enough into programming to be like, you know, the mythical like Silicon Valley hacker. Like for
Right.
me, that's not why I like it. I like it because I can build the stuff that I want to build.
Right. For you, the payoff is the end result, not the not the 10,000 lines of code, right?
I don't. Yeah, for me, I don't think I'll. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's an art form for like the guys who are expert programmers, and they, you know,
Right. Absolutely.
like pick up any language. Like, watching those guys work is an art form, and
Mhm.
you know,
And for them, writing the code is what they geek out about.
yeah,
That's what they're there for. Or for you, like you want to see that functional app or
yeah,
website or whatever,
yeah,
right? Yeah, because you're
whatever.
at the end of the day, you're a creator, like you're like me. But I mean, that's I think the most important thing for everybody to take away from AI is exactly what you just said, is that it's a tool to make you better at what you already do. And I think if humanity embraces it in that way, like it will. I mean, in the next couple decades, like humanity is going to advance at like an astounding rate if we use it that way. Research and like you said, writing code and I just got a new Google phone, and it has Google's Gemini AI built into it instead of their old kind of like Google version of Siri, which kind of sucked. And the new, I mean, I can just sit here and have a conversation with it all day long, and it explains things to me as I'm working. And our daughter has some questionably skilled teachers in her high school, I guess we'll say, and she comes home with a lot of questions that they're just not doing a good job of explaining to her, or it's not soaking in. And we spend a lot of time on Chat GPT, or she does, really, not us. I mean, she spends a lot of time on Chat GPT, and I read through some of the threads that she has on there, and it's amazing at explaining to her how to do certain math things or whatever. I mean, so yeah, if we use it right, it can make us better people. It can make us smarter and more efficient at what we do, and more productive and
Yeah.
But is that
I
a
mean,
good thing?
like,
is
yeah,
it
I don't
taking
know.
the effort out
You
of
know,
it?
you could argue that it's making us lazier too, or I think like there's a difference in using it and depending on it, I guess. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
you, I think that's where it like starts to delineate. Like if you take like design, just because that's kind of like the big point that we're riffing on. Like if you're relying on this thing to help you in the design process, but you don't have that foundation, it's I that's where I get hung up on it. Or if I'm using it to develop an app and I don't really know what I'm doing or what the end result, like something's gonna be, it's gonna go wrong.
Right,
100%.
right back to what I just said about it. Without the human subjectivity factor, yeah, and you're right. If the human involved in it doesn't have the skill or knowledge, that's where it's going to go off. That's a really good point. That's where it's going to go off the rails. Yeah, if as a good designer, if I have it create an image or something for me, and I'm able to look at that and say, yeah, that's good, I can use that, or no, that's garbage, I can't. That, and that's this is true about any professional or anything in life. Like being able to make that decision is what separates the professionals from the amateurs. But as we all know, and this isn't necessarily meant to be a knock on anybody. Everybody has to start somewhere. But there are a lot of amateurs in the design industry, in the web development industry. I mean, in every industry, there's a lot of amateurs. And if you put a powerful tool like this in the wrong hands, and those amateurs don't have the experience and skill and knowledge to look at what is created and say, that isn't good, that isn't up to a professional standard, that won't work, and they put it out there anyway just because they lack the knowledge to know better, that's another black hole that we could, or dark place we could go into.
So many dark spots. I think just devaluing. Like I don't know if it's where we're like I'm getting older and like it's like it's more work for me to just stay up to date on things, but like it feels like it devalues your experience. Like on a personal level, it's like, okay, like this thing in a year and a half, it's figured out how to do shit that took us years to learn.
Right.
And at a certain level, you're like, well, shit, like, okay, like where do we go from here? Because you can already see the trajectory where it's like,
right. I was thinking about this the other day when I was in school, so junior high. Say I was in junior high, and I needed to learn about something for a test or a report I had to write. My options were basically to go to the library and get out the encyclopedia, or hope they might have had a book specifically about that subject that I had to learn about. And if they didn't, I had to go to another library or another one until I found one that had something that I could learn. And now, and that took a lot of effort. Like there was a lot of effort involved in that. And when you actually found what you were looking for and you got that report done, like there was a sense of accomplishment, like you built something almost, right? Like you didn't, but you really went through a lot of hassle to learn that, and you were dedicated to it. And there's a real sense of pride and accomplishment when you do that. And now, like literally the entirety of human knowledge, the entire span of humanity is now available to anybody instantly. Like,
right.
Like, is it, if people don't have the work for it, the knowledge, is it inherently valuable anymore? Or, I mean, not just the end result, but the knowledge itself is, knowledge has always been power. History of humanity, knowledge is power. Knowledge is what everything is built on. And if knowledge is now, this is like a slippery slope, because on one hand, like we want all of humanity to be empowered with knowledge. We want everybody to be smart, right? We want everybody to know everything. But at the same time, when everybody actually does know everything, like,
well, I can argue now on social media, everybody does know everything.
That's actually, yeah, that's a really good point. Humanity will probably never be able to fully, sniff out the difference between, real and bullshit. But I think that's a topic for another conversation. I mean, probably. Specifically if you're trying to research something, we'll keep it in that. Leveling the playing field to that extreme extent, on the surface, obviously, yeah, that's great. That puts everybody in the same. But if you remove the effort, if you remove the know-how and the work to obtain that skill or that knowledge or whatever it is, with programming or designing a logo or something like that, yeah, I mean, does it devalue the end result? Does it devalue the knowledge involved in it? Does it devalue the person that created it? Does it devalue humanity as a whole?
Does it? Is that a resounding yes? It does, or
I don't know. I mean, I just short-circuited my own brain. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there is, like, bringing it back down. Like, obviously, there's a lot of implications, right? Because if a client can slap a it used to be like, hey, my cousin has Photoshop, but now it's like, Chat GPT designed this. Can you print it?
Right,
And it's
right,
like,
yeah.
well, yeah, same kind of thing. But obviously, like now when it is like design, to somebody outside the industry can be touch of a button or, talking to Siri or, I think Apple's going to add generative AI in like the next version of iOS, which I think is already launched. But like when design is now like, hey, I need a poster that says this in this style, like as designers or like sign people, obviously people will still need physical signs. So until robots figure that out, we're probably protected there. But as a designer, like you aside from your own personal stuff, like you're not banging out signs anymore. Like, are you scared at
No,
all?
I'm not. I'm really not, because maybe that's really naive of me, and maybe I should be. Uh, um, but I'm not. I again, because I don't think it'll ever fully replace the human factor, the human taste factor. I, I think that I think in a way it will help separate the good designers from the bad designers, and hopefully make the bad designers go away. I mean, I hope it either makes the bad designers become good designers or find another line of work, right? Like I don't, like, again, everybody has to start somewhere, but I don't like seeing bad design. No designer likes to see bad design. So I guess it has the potential of maybe pushing the entire spectrum of design in a better direction by weeding out the bad stuff in a way. I mean, because what it creates, I mean, a lot of the stuff it creates isn't necessarily bad. I mean, it's definitely workable and usable. And if you're a tiny little small mom and pop business with literally no marketing budget, and you're trying to just keep your doors open another month, and you need a poster, you can't afford to hire a graphic designer. Like, that's just not the reality of the world that we live in. So you need something. And if your options are either something that looks like crap that you threw together in Microsoft Paint, or something that that AI did for you, like, yeah, like that's a no-brainer. And I would much rather see that AI generated banner hanging in a window, even if a pro didn't get paid to design it, because that propagates better quality design work all around.
And I think like there was an episode, like the episode with Dan, like I love the way that like he positioned it. Is like, yeah, yes, they're designers and they create amazing brands, but they see themselves as stewards of their clients and not like, hey, I'm not here to create an amazing design. I'm here to help them achieve business results.
Right. Exactly.
And I freaking love seeing like they've totally switched over the last year into like, hey, these are the results that we deliver as far as a brand. But I think that is 100% like, for me it's results, right?
Right. Right. There will always be, if AI didn't exist right now, and it was like exactly it was 3 years ago, right? There will always be designers that are just designing by the pound. They're just cranking shit out to get it out the door. They're not putting that thought into it. They're thinking about, just, this customer has a budget of $25 for a poster design. I'm going to give them a poster design for $25, right? There's always going to be those people, and there's always going to be clients that only want that can only afford that. And those clients are never going to use the Dan Antonellis of the world. That's just not how it works. No matter what, they just never ever will. So I think it's great that they have an option available to them that, like I said, does put out better work than what you would get from the $25 designer. And I know that's kind of like, in a way, shitting on my own people, but I mean, it's a merit-based industry. Like, if you're not good, you shouldn't be in the industry. Like, I know that sounds harsh, but it is what it is. And if you're not trying to get better at it, and you're not trying to constantly improve, this industry will eat you alive and spit you out. So, I don't know. I see it in a way as being able to do that, and potentially move the needle in a positive direction in some way. I mean, I mean that's.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really, like, trying to really grasp at a glass is half full perspective on it. But
well, I like it. Like, is it becoming an assistive tool, right? Because if you go back like a generation, and like you see like stuff like gold leaf and hand lettering and stuff making a comeback now, but like it's never going to be what it was. But like the same folks when like CAD cut vinyl, like plotters came out was like there was a group that's like, okay, hey, I'm going to embrace this, or didn't know enough to like, hey, this is the way this is going to be done from now on. Did that took a lot of the craft out of it in my mind for sure, and things are, I won't say slowly writing themselves because there's still a design and like signed by the pound mentality out there.
Mhm.
But at least like a lot of the guests that we have, very creative projects, very very craft oriented. But like does it become a tool to help in the process, or like do you stay away from it entirely? And
I think it'll be like when the Gerber 4B hit the market, and you had like 4 fonts to choose from, and they were all variation of Helvetica. And all of a sudden, every sign on the planet or in the country was red Helvetica on white. Like that's, I think that will definitely be a period of time where the market will be flooded with AI generated graphics and marketing and stuff. Yeah, for sure. That's inevitable. I think that happens in any industry when any new technology or tool comes out. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't see it as an existential threat. I don't. I think
okay,
if
I'm gonna,
if
I'm going to share my screen now. For those of you who are listening to this thing, I'm going to try to narrate as best as I can to narrate this, even though like it's an audio podcast. So you just have to bounce on YouTube and watch the video version. All right, Mike, you see my screen?
I see your screen.
Okay, all right. So two things here. I've got on the right, I have this Claud application. It says, "Good afternoon, Bryant." I'm going to bang something in here in just a moment. On the left, I have a website called Replicate, which is a way to basically run these open source like image generation models and other like AI models. Now,
Essentially, this is kind of like a
it's like a Mid-Journey, like a DALL-E,
it's kind of like an
what I'm
interface
about to
for
show.
right.
Yeah, basically like it's extracting all the code for me. So now I have Mike's website up here. I'm going to find a nice piece of work. I really like this Central Valley image, the Central Valley monument sign that you've created. I'm going to paste this thing into Claude, and I'm going to say, write a prompt that would generate a similar sign. Okay. So most of these AI models now, especially like ChatGPT and Claude, they have the ability to examine an image and see what's going on. So this one, it is a barn red monument sign with vertical slats on it with what is that? Just dimensional letters attached to it.
Yeah, just some dimensional letters and some gooseneck lamps shining down on it, kind of a concrete base.
Yeah. So create a modern store sign design for Central Valley hardware and agricultural supply store. The sign should be mounted on a raised concrete base with decorative landscaping, including pink flowers, blah, blah, blah. Just to like summarize this, would you say this is a pretty accurate description of the sign?
I couldn't write it better myself.
Okay, so I'm going to ask it to transform this prompt into something that would work with Mid-Journey or something like that, just because like the other thing that I've discovered with AI and just like my own testing is like how you prompt these things are a little more like you have to massage it a bit, I guess. And this is not, I don't know what this is going to do specifically, but I'm just going to paste this into the Replicate application over here. And I could even, like, I could throw this like a sample image in here as well if I wanted to. But what I've done in the background before this, and this is like some testing I've done on my own, I have trained using this software a custom image generation model based on like 5 or 10 pictures of signage that I just grabbed from Google. And I'm just going to sit here, and now we're going to run this. Do we have a... I don't have any actual text in here, so let me add that piece. Are you sweating, Mike?
No, I know what I know what it's gonna do, more or less. I mean,
I'm curious because this is the first time I've like actually done it live to see what it spits out. And I may have to like lean on like some of the previous generations for this, but like this thing is going through. We've started the process with 93%. And this is what we get. We get Centaur Valley. So the text is a little bit off. But as far as like an actual sign, I mean, it's, you know, like a rendering, like it's pretty close. We could jam this again and see what it comes up with. But compared to where it was, like this is what scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Because
absolutely,
like you can clearly see, like even down to like the shadows, you know, like the level of detail is like mind blowing to me.
It is. It really is. Freaky.
Now, obviously, this is not, you know, the text is goofed up on this one, but like I could show some of the past examples that I've ran from this, where the text was like 100% spot on. And
yeah, you've sent me a few that I was pretty impressed with. I mean, that's pretty wild that it's getting that good at text. I mean, it was a matter of time before it did. I knew it would eventually, but it's here faster than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'll share some of those with the episode. But you know, like, what do you do with this? Like, you know, does this become a tool for like somebody to? You know, obviously, like I'm not going to do anything with it because I like seeing you in business. But you know, like theoretically, I mean, I could start my own like sign concept design service or something with this sort of thing.
Right. Like it for what I do, right? For a sign designer, what you just created there is a great looking sign. Like there's no denying it. It's actually a good looking sign. Like that's a sign that a sign company could definitely propose and sell for sure. But it's cool. I mean, it created a great image of a sign, but what are you going to do with that, right? Like, it's not you know, that's where the human element comes in. Like, you can't just generate that and put it in front of a customer and say, buy this from me. And, you know, you can't even put a number on it. And that's where something like ChatGPT or any of these AI tools is never going to be able, at least I don't think, again, I hope I don't have to eat my words on this, it's never going to be able to come up with that design as an actual buildable, quotable drawing that has dimensions and is actually designed in, you know, in a way that can be built. I mean, this is something that, you know, anybody who's ever had a conversation with me about sign design knows that I'm like, one of my biggest pet peeves is people who design signs that look really pretty but then can't be built, right? That sucks. Yep. That's like one of the worst things. I mean, it's awful for a salesperson in this industry to show a customer this beautiful design, get them all excited about it, and then have to go back and say,
yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it turns out, like, we got to change this to make it buildable, and now it's going to lose the impact. It doesn't look the same now. There's so much that goes into how that sign is built, and then designing to that a tool like that will never be able to take to that level. Now, as an ideation tool, like what you just did there, like, that's awesome. Like, I could take that. The creative work is done now. All I got to do is turn that into a set of drawings, right? That just made me more efficient. It didn't necessarily steal my job. It made my job easier and more efficient. And, you know, if that design brief was in front of me for that particular type of sign for that client, more than likely I would have never come up with that design, what it did. I wouldn't have gone in that direction. But it gave me an idea or a direction that is different than what I would have done. And it's a good idea. It's a great design. And that allows me to, you know, maybe I can run with that. Maybe I can do another variation of that over here. And it, you know, just like you said, like it's great to have this, you know, almost like a coder sitting right next to you all the time. You can bounce ideas off of as a designer. Like it works that way as well. It'll never be able to generate a perfect, fully functional website or app with, you know, the way that a human could, but it can definitely help you get there. And I feel like that's to one degree or another, where it'll always be for professional designers, right? Something like that. Now, if you're talking about like a printed poster or banner, that's a different story. It's literally just ink on a flat substrate. There's nothing. Designers that are doing that kind of design work, I feel like, should be more concerned about their job than.
If you are a straight print designer, if you weren't already cooked, you are cooked. That's basically what Mike is saying.
Well, well, let's be honest here, though. I mean, like apps like Canva, though, that have been around for quite a while, that they're already taking those jobs. That app is already taking that job, because now anybody with no design experience can open up Canva and, frankly, put together a pretty nice poster design or banner design. I mean, the Canva templates aren't bad. It's an easy program to learn, and it kind of forces you to do a decent job. So, I don't know. AI is just another Canva, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, something like this. Obviously, like you mentioned, like this is one of the past ones that I did, where you give it a reference photo and ask it to create a channel letter sign, and as far as like a concept, it's not bad. It's not great, but
it's phenomenal rendering, though. I mean, they look beautiful.
And upon first inspection, like unless you like zoomed into the text on this door, like you'd never really know. I guess it's not spicy, but like I don't see this. It's a tool to use, right? Oh, that's a different one. That is that's a flyer that I was working with.
But that's a great example of one, though, that flyer, because you would have never found that Iron Maiden ghoul in the background. If there's no way you could come up with that. I mean,
right?
It costs you thousands of dollars to hire an artist to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, and see, like again, by no means I'm not saying this is like an elegant process or like it even gets it right. I would say like the hit rate in my own testing now for something is probably like 15-20%. Like 1 out of 5, it comes up with something that's usable. But again,
that's better than a human designer, though, to be honest with you.
I agreed. It's a tool for creativity, I guess, because again, to me, this only like seeks to like enhance your own creativity, because now instead of like racking your brain or going for a walk and waiting for inspiration to strike, you can rapidly iterate on something, and obviously like, the end result is going to be better. But
it's been great for me for that purpose there alone. Another area of AI that we haven't really talked about a whole lot are some of the AI tools that are being built into apps now, like Photoshop and Illustrator, now have generative AI built right into them. Photoshop in particular has been fantastic. Some of the tools it has in there. With the work that I do a lot of photo renderings where I take an image photograph of the building the sign is going to be going on, or the landscape of the site where the sign's going to go, and then I've got to superimpose the sign in there. And anybody in the sign industry knows that survey photos are usually garbage when you get them back from whoever you sent out to take them. I mean, they're terrible photos. Yeah. They're awful, and they definitely you've heard me preach about this a million times. The sales presentation, what you put in front of your customer, will make or break that sale for you. Not just the design of the sign in there, but the way you present it to the customer. If your drawing looks like shit, if it looks like a kindergartner put that drawing presentation together, and that customer's getting other bids from somebody else, and their drawings look better, they're going to go with that customer. So using some of these tools like AI allows me to really efficiently and quickly take these crappy photographs that I get and clean them up and turn them into presentation ready, almost beautiful images that people are like, wow, that looks amazing. Like they really put some effort and some thought into this presentation. They really want me to see what this
potty out of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I do that kind of stuff all the time. Right. Like I'll get pictures of like where a sign's going to go, like where a monument sign's going to go. And like their truck is in the way. Like the sign's going to go here behind the truck, but here's a picture of my F-150. Like, and I've had to use it to, select that truck and say, remove truck. And it will, at first it wasn't that great, but now, I mean, I can take an image that would have needed hours of work, and I can have it, looking like a professional photographer took it in 10 minutes. And that my clients have seen a huge impact in business with that alone, because they're closing more sales now because of that. And it's not costing them more money for me to go to that level where, it's not like I'm taking money out of my own pocket by doing this, because my clients wouldn't have paid me to go to that level. If I had to spend 3 hours photoshopping one image to make it look nice in a presentation, that's not really justifiable.
No.
Right. Yeah. It's not a sole job yet. I mean, they're paying me to do this design on the hope that the customer's going to buy that sign. So they're not going to pay an extra 3 hours for me to, Photoshop the hell out of this picture. But if I can do it in 10 or 15 minutes, that adds more value to the work I did, and I could charge a little bit more for it. And they're happy to pay that. And that drawing looks amazing compared to what it would have looked like if I hadn't done that. And then it helps them sell the sign. So they eat it up. So it ripples out and affects a lot of things indirectly. And I think, looking at it through the lens of efficiency and just helping you do your job, it better serves your client in the end is, I think, the lens that people need to look through to avoid being, so terrified of it that they just completely avoid it, because that will, you can't avoid this. If you do that, you're going to be left in the dust, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I watched like a video, and like we could start to bring this home because I'm gonna have to go pick up my kids soon.
Right.
But I watched a video of it was like an 8-year-old kid, or maybe it was like a 6-year-old kid, and she was like prompting. She was using one of the LLM like code editors, and like she built her own little app, whatever she wanted. It took her like 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
like I was just fascinated with it because like that's that job is obviously like cooked in a few years, like building XYZ app.
Yeah. But how cool is that, though? How freaking amazing is that? The 6-year-old is like, I have a need for this. Like,
well, yeah, it's just being able to now get as a creator, it's as mind blowing, right? Because
right.
now I have a tool. Like, I don't even have to spend years learning programming. I could just jump in and like start hacking together something, which is why I think that's the best way to learn anyway. But yeah, it's just mind blowing.
But I think that begs the question, though, like are we humans, are we putting the value emphasis on the wrong part, right? Like for that 6-year-old that made an app to solve a problem that she identified in her life, and you said that job is cooked, right? Like making those apps in the future, is it, or does it just create different opportunities that people need to adapt to? Like, is that girl, like, did that experience making that app, did that eliminate a job in the future, or did that solidify in her mind that this is really cool, and I'm going to do this for a living, and it planted that seed in her brain that you can create things from scratch and solve problems, and
Right.
and the end result is what matters, not the tools you used to get there, not the endless lines of code that you wrote. As impressive as that all is, nobody gives a shit about that. They care about whether it works and whether it makes their life easier. They care about whether the design brings them more business. They don't care how you made it. And I feel like there's a maybe we need to get out of our own way and remove some of our ego from the process of creation and creativity, and accept that all that really matters is the final result. Maybe, I don't know. There's your spicy take.
Spicy. All that matters is the result. I mean, I agree. We didn't get a chance to I think this is like a series, honestly, because like you said, it's not going away, and I want to figure out how to pull you back into the podcast for at least some of these episodes. So, we didn't get a chance to talk about like the other ways to use this, but there's so many different applications, and I think like the things that I've learned, like working in the tech space over the last year and a half, I definitely want to talk about it. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going here.
Well, let's do a part 2 then. I mean,
part 2. He's committed. We're doing a part 2.
Yeah,
Love it.
Get Peter back on here, and he can talk about how AI is helping Fast Signs franchisees. Sorry. Couldn't help it. I had to get my jab in on Fast Signs.
Fast Signs. Okay. We're getting the cease and desist letters from the franchises now. I mean, personally, like I'm using it to do the shit that I really don't want to do. Like, like write a description for this podcast, probably. Like there's an AI that I'm gonna use to. Well, actually, the platform that we're using, Riverside, will spit out a transcript for me now. I'm gonna throw that into Claude, and I'm gonna say, write a summary for this based on It's like this format that we've used in the past, and it's going to take 30 seconds, and I'm going to be done with it, and I can move on to the next thing. So lots of things like that we'll revisit.
Well, we got the existential, dread part of the conversation out of the way today, at least, so we can actually get down to the bare bones.
Okay, all right. Well, do we want to save let's save the Terminator shit for the end of the next one then.
We'll be back.
Takeaways? Do we have any takeaways? Don't be scared.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the only one. Like, fear not what you don't understand.
If you're in the sign industry, and even if you're a designer, you don't have to run out and start a plumbing business or get a plumbing job just yet. We got some runway. But back to my spicy take, this thing is getting better at a crazy rate. So these predictions may not age well.
But I think it's safe to say don't sit on this and don't just write it out and think it's going to go away, because the chances of that happening are slim to none. I think at this point we all have to embrace it.
Well, as soon as Apple releases the update where the AI is ubiquitous into the iPhone, where it will write a text message to my wife explaining why I spent too long on the podcast for me. It's not going away at that point.
Yeah, no. I'm addicted to. I'm not addicted to it. I'm just. I can't imagine going through a day without using it at this point. It's become as commonplace in my life as Google, and I think it will continue to do that for everybody as time goes on. So, to be continued. Part 2 coming soon.
To be continued. If you are interested in joining the podcast as a guest, make sure you hit us up at hey@bettersignshop.com. We'd love to have you on. If you're a sign shop owner, you've got an interesting story, we'd love to tell interesting stories, aside from just rambling on. So definitely do that.
We love to do that too.
And make sure that you hop onto the Facebook community. That is just the Better Sign Shop community on Facebook. Exclusive community for sign shop owners. That's it. We'll catch you on the next episode.
If you liked this episode, make sure you hit subscribe to get all the latest episodes. And check out our website, bettersignshop.com. Get free resources and helpful tools on growing your shop. Thanks for listening.